Okay. So I'm going to start with a disclaimer.
Okay.
This is an educational project. I'm not a professional therapist. If there are any questions you don't want to answer, you don't have to.
Okay.
The recording will be seen by a professor and possibly the class, but you won't be on it, and I won't use your name. And I'll make sure that your identity is kept private so that you can say whatever you want to, but no one will know who you are.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So to start, I just wanted to see, like, before I point you in any direction, if you have any initial impressions or ideas about aging at this moment in your life, if it's been positive or negative, if it's been what you expected or...
Well, I talk with friends a lot about the discrepancy between my picture. So I'm 71.
Mm-hmm.
And the discrepancy between my picture of what an old person or a 71-year-old looked like from my childhood,
Mm-hmm.
which was, they looked very old. They wore house dresses and house coats and very kind of old lady clothes and old lady shoes. And they just looked old.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm off by at least 10 or 15 years from that image.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I never quite feel like I'm 71. I don't feel that age. Although sometimes I do. My little aches and pains remind me of that.
So would you say that you feel mentally younger than you do physically?
Yes. Yes.
Interesting.
Uh-huh.
And what changes have you noticed physically, say, over the last 10 years?
Well, a lot. I've had 2 knee replacements. And so in the last 10 years, one and then the other knee just kind of disintegrated, which really limited my life a lot for a while. And that's been the main thing, is arthritis. And now I have it in my feet, so, you know, there's pain when I walk, and I love to walk. So I walk a lot. But as they say with arthritis, the deal is to keep moving, so it's a good thing.
Good.
And it does, the more you move it, the pain subsides, so it doesn't get in the way. But it has been a miracle having 2 knee replacements, because I had to give up so much. And it's like any sort of, I suppose, when people have chronic illnesses, you just let go of parts of your life, you know? And so I didn't realize how much I had just adapted to not being able to walk very much. And, you know, so I changed the kind of vacations I took. But the main thing that I noticed after I got the second one and I was really up and on my feet is how cut off I had been from nature.
Oh, wow.
That the eliminating hiking and walking and being on trails, which I just didn't do at all for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I started hiking with the Sierra Club, and we'd go on these trails, different ones every week, and it was like I had died and gone to heaven. I mean, just, when you say taking a breath of that air, you know, just breathing those pine trees and just the feeling of your feet on a trail and being in nature. I realized that I just have to have that. My soul does not do well without that.
I understand that.
So.
Yeah. Was there ever another period of your life where you felt like you got out of touch with nature for other reasons?
Probably when I lived in New York City. That's what comes to mind first. Because growing up, I was very connected with nature. I lived, our house had a big backyard which ended in a woods.
Oh.
And that woods was my home, my second home. It was just, I was there a lot. And very familiar with it, and loved the different seasons in it, and then the place I loved to swim the most was a creek, a really good swimming hole in a creek, and that was out in this beautiful kind of wild area.
Oh wow!
So it was really part of my growing up, and so I think as a young adult living in New York, then living in San Francisco,
I can see that. Yeah. So let's go to cognitive abilities.
Okay.
Have you noticed a change in your memory in, say, the last 10 years?
Oh, yeah. Proper nouns.
Uh-huh. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, names, and some places and so forth, but they're and word finding, like I used to know some great, SAT words. I used to have a good vocabulary, but now it's finding those words, they're in there somewhere. Or,
Have you found having technology like a phone and with Google, has that changed your experience with your memory?
Oh yeah, like who was that actress in that movie that had to do with whatnot, and then you can just Google it and get it. Oh yeah, so it helps a lot to compensate.
I bet that lessens.
Yeah, and I find too that while I can't think of a really perfect word, you can always think of a word,
That's true.
And so it's not like it really handicaps a conversation or anything like that. It's just that you settle for a less great word,
It's a circuitous route.
Yeah, right.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
What about attention span?
Speaking of which, I just now remembered a word I've been trying to think of.
Yes.
It was funny because I was telling you about the cafes in Vienna, and of course, Viennese coffee is just fabulous. And I was trying to think, there is a certain, how you order different coffee. There was a coffee that I really liked, and I haven't been able to think of it for days, and it just came to my mind.
Oh my gosh.
Melange.
Melange. What is
Cafe
it?
Melange. It's kind of like a latte, only it's stronger. Yeah, less milk in it, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, there you go. Now you have it.
I love it.
That's great. Yeah, write that down.
Because I won't remember it. Yeah.
So what about things like your learning process, like acquiring knowledge, or like the creative process? Has that changed for you over the years?
I've noticed it's hard to memorize. Like, I know a million songs. Everything from Broadway to camp songs and pop songs, but now it's harder to learn the words. And I've been working on memorizing music because I play piano, and it's really hard to memorize a piece. I think this is just taking forever, and it didn't seem like it used to take that long.
Do you have to use more mnemonics, or is it just a harder process altogether?
Yes, I do use mnemonics a lot. Like, for example, park the car in a garage. It's on C1. Okay, I'll think. When I had one cat,
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah,
and that works perfectly.
That's cool.
Somehow, I've noticed, and I don't know how it works, in terms of the biochemistry or whatever, but that if I associate something, I can remember it. So somehow that associative process locks it into memory.
That's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's connections. Like parallel connections.
Yeah. Whereas if I just try to memorize C1, it can just fall right out of it,
Yeah. That's interesting. All right. I haven't gotten to... Well, we did talk about physical condition. What about... Oh, here's a good one. Socio-emotional I don't even know what we call it, like this, your socio-emotional experience. So one of my questions about that would be, how have you balanced career and family in your life? And have there been smooth transitions, or has there been any kind of challenge for you to balance those two things?
Well, your first thing occurs to me is you're going to like this answer because it was not hard at all.
Oh.
Being a psychotherapist. So when I was pregnant with the twins, I got my license. And up until that point, I don't think I had ever thought about practicing psychotherapy. I had worked in mental health, I ran a subacute unit, I ran halfway houses, and I always thought, working with the really, emotionally sick people was sort of what I was going to do. But I realized when I was about to have kids that I thought, that doesn't really mix very well. Being called in the middle of the night because someone's suicidal. So I got my license and I started practice when they were about 2. And that has just been perfect in terms of work-life balance because when they were in school and in after-school sports and all that kind of stuff, I just worked like 2 afternoons a week so I could take them to practice and I could be at their games and I worked part-time and was able to earn enough money to
That's amazing.
as much as we needed. So so it wasn't until I think Alice was in high school I started ramping it up to more full-time because then I was paying for college and and all that, so I needed to crank out a lot more money. But it was really a great career in terms of being able to shape it according to the needs of my family. Being able to take vacation when I wanted to, I didn't have to ask anybody. You're really running your own show. So, and now as I'm kind of heading into retirement, it's also great because like I'm paring down, I'm working half-time. I'm working 2.5 days a week.
The best.
It's the best. And now I'm cutting back even more to have 2.5 really easy days a week. So I have breaks, I go out and take a walk, do other things. Because I have a lot of other things now that I want to spend more time on. I play the piano and I take lessons, and I'd like more time to play. As I mentioned, I work on climate change stuff, and in particular, getting the Presbyterian Church to divest from fossil fuels on a national level.
Have you been doing that?
We started about 2.5 years ago, I think, maybe 3.5. Anyway.
And before you started working, did you feel a need, like you wanted to be more involved on a bigger level?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I have always, the kids will tell you, from when the twins were like 3 and 4, I with a couple of friends, put together an anti-nuclear sticker that people put on their front door. It was Neighbors for Peace, and it had a big X over a nuclear bomb. And then when Alice was in elementary school, I started a thing called the Lunch Bag Project. So I had these little cloth lunch bags made, and we sold them to schools through the PTAs to sell, with the idea of having sustainable lunches. So instead of a bunch of throwaway containers and paper and whatnot. So then just through the years, I've done other things about the environment and sustainability. But about 2 or 3 years ago, I thought, this isn't cutting it. We're all cutting back on our plastic and our paper, and the carbon parts per million is still going up every year. So this isn't doing anything. So I thought I really have to figure out something to do on a bigger level. I thought, okay, then I heard about institutional divestment from fossil fuels, Bill McKibben, and I thought, well, that's it. We'll get the Presbyterian Church to divest their $10 billion
That's amazing.
Fuels. And you know that like universities are dealing with this. Stanford has divested from coal. It's a big effort at Harvard to get Harvard to divest from fossil fuels. So, and hundreds of schools across the country are working.
How's the progress been with the church?
Well, we took an overture, which is a resolution, to their national meeting last June in Detroit, and we had amazing support. I mean, people were floored because, you know, presbytery is like the local, regional group. We had 12 presbyteries across the country who passed this.
Oh, wow.
Which said Presbyterian Church has to divest in 5 years, da da da. So we were feeling pretty good about it, and we got there, and the powers that be in the finance people shut it down so quickly.
Wow.
It was like, really, this is a church? They completely shut down the conversation about it through some obscure Robert's Rules of Order thing. So anyway, we did manage to get it in front of the whole body, and it was discussed for like an hour and a half, which is a lot. So it's out there, people are talking about it, and we're now working on the second round. We'll go back. Their next meeting is next June in Portland, so we'll go back with another overture, and this time with a lot more education of people. And I'm in charge of grassroots organizing, so it's you know, making personal contacts with people across the country, we've developed a curriculum, getting that at the churches, and petition drive and letter writing drive. So,
wow,
yeah, it's a lot of work, and I have to say I don't enjoy it.
Oh, really?
But I feel very passionate about it. I feel like this is the issue, the overarching every other issue, and we have to get people to wake up. So I have that passion, but because it's a nationwide campaign, it's mostly on email and conference calls, and I'm a face-to-face person.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just not how it works.
So would you say it's not enjoyable, but it might be fulfilling, but in a delayed sense?
Exactly. It's fulfilling. I know I'm doing something important, and I'm doing what I know I should be doing. But it's not like sitting down in a room with a bunch of people and let's brainstorm how we're going to do this.
Right,
you know?
like the 60s might have been.
Yes, exactly. So I would enjoy that more.
Yeah, that sounds more immediately gratifying.
Yeah. It's just not as much fun typing emails.
No. It's interesting because we haven't gotten to this chapter in our book yet, but I think from reading ahead a little bit that being more involved and more active on a grander scale is part of late adulthood. So I think this will be proven through my reading. We'll see. We'll have to see. So, okay, the next subject I wanted to talk about was marriage and divorce, and kind of the process of growing up in a family and then having your own family, and then what happens sort of beyond that as your own family changes.
So, help me focus that question a little bit more.
We could start with, what would you say the differences are in the way that you were raised by your parents, and then what you chose to do when you had children of your own?
Yeah, okay. Let's see, the first thing that pops into my mind is my parents they were social, but not like having people over to dinner, and I grew up in the midst of a very big extended family. So we got together with that family. That's where the social stuff was. So so I resolved that I would have more of a social life with my family, and like, you know, have other families to dinner and that kind of thing. So just entertaining more, that sort of thing. And my family was, I think my parents were pretty typical 50s parents. It was like kids are to be seen and not heard and not paid much attention to. They just sort of grow themselves. You feed and water them and they just, grow up, and that's that.
There might be some wisdom in that.
Yeah. I think we could do a course correction a little bit back that way, because we've gone to the other. But so I grew up a lonely kid, and so I sought out your relatives and friends, and always had a really good circle of friends and that sort of thing. And so I think that influenced my parenting a lot, that I would be a good listener, I'd be interested in how their day was, I'd be interested in who they are, that kind of thing.
That must have been interesting with twins, too, to figure out how they became different people.
Yeah.
Or the similarities, too.
Yeah. Well, I resolved early on with them that I would really foster differentiation, and that was a little bit overcorrection, because
interesting.
So, for example, when they were in preschool, they'd go 2 days together, and then each of them would go 1 day by themselves, and that day, of course, the other one would have a day with me by themselves,
That's nice.
And so they each had sort of these experiences of separateness early on. And then in school, they were in different classes. So then by the time you met them in middle school, they were, one took Spanish, one took French, one played volleyball, one played soccer, one dressed in J. Crew and one dressed in Goodwill, and
Definitely.
Yeah, so they divided up the entire world, and as I say, I may have overcorrected differentiation. Anyway, so, but back to your question of what was different. I think the main one was, that I would just be more interested in them as people.
It seems like you did that well.
I don't know, you'd have to ask them.
I think they'd say you did. So what about marriage and divorce? Do you have any thoughts or feelings about your experience, or even your experience in comparison to friends of yours who went through the same thing but maybe in a different way?
Yeah, I think I was pretty lucky in a way, in that I had a really terrible divorce. I mean, it was pretty, the story. And it was, it just completely erupted my world, and the bottom fell out, and it was horrible for a year. And during that year, I was going through all the legal stuff, and I had lots of support. I mean, literally people walking with me. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I did the dish and pounded out all my anger and rage and, fears and friends that just walked with me. And so I think I came out the other end, as well as can be expected. And let's see, about 5 years after that, maybe a little less, I met Richard, and we've been together for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So it took me a while after the divorce to sort of be on my own and get my feet on the ground. And Alice was, in the 4th grade when we divorced, so I really had a child to raise and keep my eye on. So it was good. Those years were good, kind of reconsolidating, because we not only didn't have Jim anymore in the picture, but the twins left for college a year after our separation. So all of a sudden we went from 5 to 2.
Wow.
pretty quickly.
It's a big change.
It's a big change in critical mass. So, and one of the things I did that I am very happy about is when she got into middle school. Well, yeah, I guess in middle school, just 6th, 7th, 8th. After the twins had left, I would bring. I hosted foreign students, language students.
Oh, cool.
So I was a host family for this language school, and they would send students for anywhere from like 6 weeks to 3 or 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And so we had our table got bigger again, you know, and it was wonderful because Alice was in middle school. We had a student from Mexico, from Spain, from France, from Japan, you know, so she just got exposed to all this whole different big world, you know.
That's really cool. And it falls in line with your original view for your family to be social and inclusive.
Yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really
So
cool.
it really worked out well. I made some money to help with college, paying for college, and you know, it was Alice to this day really has great memories of that time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so so anyway, those were some things I did to navigate divorce, and I just don't know kind of what else to say about it.
Yeah.
It's not fun, but it's not the end of the world either.
Didn't kill you. Was it hard on your identity to go from being, like, having the title of a married woman to being someone who's divorced, or did that not bother you?
It didn't. You know, I didn't get married till I was 34. And so I think, I mean, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about it before, but I think because of that, I just always had my own identity. It was kind of like, oh, and now I'm a wife, or and, you know, that, but it's not like that's who I am.
Right.
You know, I had 34 years of being myself and having a whole life, and then I got married.
Right, you weren't one of those women that was someone's wife.
Yeah, yeah, that was a part of who I was, but
That's great.
like, I don't think I ever referred to myself as Mrs. So-and-so, ever. I did take his name because I wanted to have the same name as the kids. But yeah.
You know, that kind of leads me to another question. It's something I've thought about a lot with my mom, who's your same age, is your generation seems to have had a bit of a duality between, like, growing up in the 50s, where things were very conservative, and then having the 60s, and it seems like sometimes women of that generation felt pulled in different directions. Like, they should be more conservative, and then they felt like they should be more liberal. Did you ever feel like you were caught in that?
No. I felt like I grew up in a very conservative, racist, Republican family. My dad was just very bigoted, and even though it was Ohio. And I think I almost felt like I came out as a liberal Democrat around junior year in college. I was at an Ohio college that was fairly conservative and leaning. And it was like I realized who I was politically. You know, around junior year, I thought, I am not that.
How old were you around then?
20.
In college? Regular
in college. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it was sophomore year, because I thought about transferring to Oberlin, which is more liberal. And then I just ended up sticking it out. But then I started to do more politically active things on campus. We met with the admissions department around recruiting more minorities from a very all-white campus. It was awful. So, and then after that I went to New York, and then I really got involved with the anti-Vietnam War, with civil rights.
What year was that, did you say?
Well, that would be the 65, 66. But I got involved in civil rights earlier than that, because I remember working at an interracial camp in New York State, Buffalo, and we were, dealing with racial issues and whatnot. So I never had a conflict. It was more like, oh, that's who I am. Okay, we'll go with that.
That's great.
But here's the funny thing. This is for your developmental psychology class. I always thought, Eric Erickson's stages of development.
Yes.
And I always thought there was a stage of development where you turned from being a Democrat into a Republican around 40, when you bought a house and you had, investments to protect and all this, and then you'd vote for lower taxes and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
I just thought, had to be one of Erickson's stages of development. I'm going to become a Republican, and that's that. And it was kind of sad, but and then I sort of woke up in my 40s. I thought, it did not happen.
Oh my God.
It didn't happen, and not only did it not happen, I have become more raging liberal, progressive, whatever we call them now, than I was in my 20s.
Wow.
I mean, I just get incensed about things. And certainly climate change is the one I work on, but I can get incensed about all kinds of other things. So anyway, that's just a humorous thing.
It is, well,
but it was true.
Yeah.
I really thought that just, because I grew up and my parents were conservative, I thought, well, that's just what happens when you grow up.
Right. And you're kind of preparing, maybe, okay, this might be projecting, but were you holding out a little bit to not make statements that were too defined because you thought maybe that was coming?
No. I don't. I think I was pretty well defined. I mean, I was, going to, certainly in my 20s, going to anti-war demonstrations and working on, with getting candidates elected who would, be anti-war and what else. I mean, I just did all the stuff that people do, and so I just pretty much defined myself the way I felt I was.
That's great.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just thought this is coming in the future somewhere.
Well, it certainly happens enough around you. You witness it a lot.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool that you
but I'm vastly relieved that I get to still care about things in the way that
I guess that's maybe a better question. When you realized that wasn't going to happen, were you relieved?
Vastly relieved, yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think that I have just really one more question.
Okay.
Which is, it's a big question, but it's like, in the last 10 years, what would you say has been the most significant change? And it could be physically, mentally, emotionally. It could be with your friendships or your values, internally, externally. If you were to think about yourself, like in this kitchen 10 years ago, what do you think has changed the most for you?
So I would have been 61. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is not having kids at home.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think 10 years ago, Alice was 18 or 19. Anyway, she was just leaving the nest. And that has definitely been the biggest change. I'm a social people person, and I live by myself. And I have a boyfriend, but he lives in Alameda, and so we're just together on the weekends. So I really feel like most of my life is single, and the emptiness thing was very hard for me. And it's not that I didn't have lots of interests. I have lots of interests, and have always had more stuff to do than I had time to do. But I liked having the kids here, and it was just, I'm a family person. I think I'm like your mom in that way.
Yeah, you want that energy around.
Yeah.
Did you? Oh, here's another question from earlier that I had. Have you found yourself having these surgeries, having to ask for more help, and has that been difficult to accept help in a way, or to feel like maybe your independence is lessened when you're in a state of illness or physical, physically not at your capacity.
Yeah, I think I certainly had to ask for more help when I was, when my knees were compromised, when they were I just couldn't do much, couldn't lift things, they would hurt a lot. And then certainly in the month after surgery, I needed a lot of help. And fortunately, I had family and friends who delivered on that, including your mom. So, yeah, but that was pretty time limited, yeah.
Right, so did that help, knowing that that period was coming to an end?
Yeah.
Because I know that for my mom, when she had her last surgery, she really didn't want to accept help from anybody.
Yes, she's impossible to help.
Certain people are like that, but I guess maybe for you it was not as hard. Well, it seems like you have a more fluid identity. It doesn't seem like you're that attached to being a wife, maybe more to being a mother, but to being, maybe accepting help for you isn't as hard.
Yeah, certainly not like your mom, but it's not hard to accept help. It's hard to ask for help, but at times when I just need it, I don't, that doesn't. Yeah.
Okay, I just thought of one more question.
Okay.
So I know at a point in your past you were thinking about becoming a minister. Is that correct?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
I went to seminary after college, but it was really, I was headed for social work.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed in college taking theology and biblical studies. And so I thought, well, that would be fun to do more of that. And at Union Seminary, they had a joint program with Columbia School of Social Work. I thought, perfect.
Oh, wow.
I'll get that. Well, when I got there, that joint program had fallen apart. So,
yay.
So I spent a year there and then an intern year in East Harlem with other theological students. And those 2 years were, I was just saying this to Jesse today, because we were talking about the Boulder opportunity.
Oh, right.
And I said, these were 2 years that I haven't done anything with, because I didn't go into the ministry. But absolutely irreplaceable years of my life. Loved it. I mean, Union was a place where, so I went from this Republican college to Union Seminary, which is right in New York, across from Columbia University, upper, Morningside Heights. And it was like, oh, my tribe. I have found my tribe. People who wanted to talk about theology, but man, they are out there on the marches where we are picketing Chase Manhattan Bank because of their apartheid investments in South Africa, and just there was always, it was so much vitality and so much going on.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
I just treasure those years very much.
That's cool that it didn't have to turn into the whole full story for it to be a valuable experience.
Not yet. Didn't become a career path, but it certainly was life-changing and shaped me in certain ways.
That's really
like
cool.
I still am a member of a Presbyterian church. I think I chose a church that was very progressive, that would fit with that liberal theology. So, and I see the church as sort of my home base to do social justice work. That it supports that.
Right. And it's a good group of people to do it with.
Yeah.
I imagine it being difficult to find people that are like the activist level and the level of positivity, because a lot of activist groups can be very, aggressive or negative.
Yeah.
So to have that faith and the spiritual foundation probably really helps counteract that.
I think so. I really like it. Like even our conference calls, we have a couple of them a month. We always start with prayer. We always end with prayer. And it kind of grounds you in why you're doing this, and that there's a larger purpose here than just me and whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stop this guy now.